What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Somehow already, this is the NFL Week 3 early look. This is a 10,000-foot view of the slate because there are no player props out yet. So I'm going to look at some lines. I'm going to look at some games and break down some of the games and give you some player props and some ranges where I think they'll release so you can jump on them early so you get the best odds and the best value before the lines shift around and everybody starts placing their bets. But first, we've got to play the music. The first game we've got onto the slate is the Thursday night football game. Now, New England and the Jets square off in New York, or actually it's in New Jersey. Division games are tough. Division games are always difficult because sometimes unpredictable things happen. These teams know each other so well. The edges are smaller. Right now, the New York Jets are 6.5-point favorites at home. The over-under is set on 37.5, and the money line for the Jets is 278. The Pats have allowed the fewest passing touchdowns through the first 2 weeks of the season and the fewest rushing yards. The Jets have allowed the second fewest passing yards against them. So I anticipate this to be a low-scoring game, and you can see that set at the 37.5-point line. Look at the Jacoby Brissett under 184.5 passing yards. If that releases somewhere around 179 to 190, I like the under on that line. He's had 121 and 149 passing yards through weeks 1 and 2, and I don't anticipate him reaching that this week. The next game we've got is the New York Giants traveling to Cleveland to face the Brownies at home. The Brownies are a 6-point favorite in this game. Another low over-under set at 38.5, and the money line for the Browns is a minus 265. The Cleveland Browns are a tough matchup for opposing quarterbacks, which does not bode well for the already struggling Daniel Jones. I'm interested in taking a look at Daniel Jones over 1 interception or over a half interception. So for Daniel Jones to throw 1, potentially 2 interceptions in this game is interesting to me, as well as maybe a sprinkle on a Cleveland Browns defensive touchdown. I also could be interested in, and depending on the odds, a Jerome Ford touchdown in this game. I don't know if I'm going to go to Neighbors, although he's shown himself to be a target monster for this team. So I'll have to see what his line is at to see if I have interest in that. The next game on the schedule is the Denver Broncos traveling to the 2-0 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay is a 6.5-point favorite at home. I think I like the 6.5-point favorite Tampa Bay in this game, and the over-under is set at 40. Now, Tampa Bay had a hard-fought win against Detroit last week, and if you want their money line, it's a minus 305. Chris Godwin, anytime touchdown. Chris Godwin came out and played phenomenal last week. He was constantly a target for Baker Mayfield. He looks great in the slot. I've been preaching, if you watch my videos all summer, how much I loved slot Chris Godwin for best ball in fantasy sports. And Chris Godwin is delivering on that hype. I'm excited. I'm going to be taking a look at his anytime touchdown. Mike Evans' anytime touchdown is always in play. Maybe a sprinkle on both could potentially be the move. Chris Godwin's receiving line could be interesting. If it's around 60, potentially going up to maybe 69.5, I could have some interest. If it's into the 70s, even in the high 60s, I might have to take a look at it and really think, but I like it probably up to that 69.5. I would also be very interested to take a look at where Denver's receiving props are at. And I'm not going to say too much more beyond that because I think that they're going to be throwing the ball the entire game. And I want to see somebody like Cortland Sutton and maybe Reynolds. I want to look at their receiving props because Tampa Bay has been very friendly to opposing wide receivers and tight ends through the first 2 weeks. Oh, hello. Fancy seeing you here. Do me a favor, while you're here, like the video, comment on the video, and subscribe to the channel. Ring that bell. The next game on the schedule is another low-scoring game. We've got the Chargers traveling to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Steelers open up as 2-point favorites. The over-under is set at a very low 35.5. If you'll notice, there's a lot of games that have a low over-under this week. So I think I'm going to be a little bit more cautious with my anytime touchdowns this week. If you watched my video last week, you know that J.K. Dobbins, yes, J.K. J.K. Dobbins, Mr. Explosive in this offense, was my favorite anytime touchdown play, and boy, did he deliver in style. Cash us out at a plus 160. He was my second highest anytime touchdown odds play that we hit. I imagine we'll get something around a plus 120 on him or so this week. However, I will say this, Pittsburgh's not a great matchup, and he was out-touched again in week 2 by Gus Edwards. So this might be a spot I actually potentially do not go back to the well on J.K. Dobbins. Now, the one bright spot we do have going for us is if you are going to attack Pitt, it is through the ground, on the ground, through the running game, where they are 14th against the run, and they are 4th toughest against the pass. The Chargers, on the other hand, are just average literally across the board, so I don't mind taking a look at Pickens lines and Najee Harris potentially to score a touchdown. However, as I said, it's projected to be a low-scoring game, so I probably won't have too much exposure to this one. The next game on the slate is the Packers traveling to Tennessee to play the Titans. The Titans are 2.5-point favorites. The over-under is set at another low 36.5, and if you want the Tennessee Titans money line, it's a minus 148. I'm actually maybe potentially interested in looking at Green Bay at a plus 124 here, but I'm not exactly sure about that yet because both of these offenses and both of these teams are just not playing that great to begin with. However, Green Bay's not great, was still good enough to beat my Colts last week. I'm still not bitter about it or anything. Josh Jacobs' anytime touchdown is firmly in play, and Tony Pollard over 12.5 rushing attempts is in play, even if Tajee Spears plays, which I think he's going to actually, because I think he lucked out on his injury news. I don't think it's as bad as they originally thought, which is always good news. I'm still interested potentially in Tony Pollard's over 12.5 rushing attempts if that's what the line releases at this week. The next game on the slate is the Houston Texans traveling to the Minnesota Vikings. Both teams are 2-0 and red hot. Houston is actually a road favorite at minus 2.5. The over-under set at a 45.5 clip, which is much better than most of the other games on this slate. And the Houston Texans money line is a minus 148. Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson are who I'm interested in for Minnesota. I want to look at the receiving props and the passing prop for Sam Darnold, and I want to look at Justin Jefferson's anytime touchdown prop because somebody's going to have to score in this game to keep Minnesota in it. Under his 33.5 completions for Sam Darnold, question mark, could be something I'm interested in as well. CJ Stroud, believe it or not, under 263 passing yards. He's been under 263.5 passing yards in both of his games this year, even though he just stayed under it in the primetime game last night. Nico Collins will be motivated in a matchup against Justin Jefferson. I expect him to have a big game as well. I could be interested in his over 80.5 receiving yards and maybe an anytime touchdown. It just depends on what Nico's line is at. If he's creeping up to that 89 or 92 range, I don't think I'm going to touch it. I'll have to look at that a little bit further. The next game on the slate is one that's near and dear to my heart and near and dear to my betting pockets because I actually have some bets going with a member of ours in the VIP Picks channel about the Bears and the Colts. So this is a big one for my bet. The Colts are 0-2, not looking great. The Bears are 1-1, coming off a tough loss to Houston. I think the Colts should win this game, but I've been wrong twice this season. So I'm probably going to stay away from the money line and the spread and just root for my Colts in peace. I do like the Jonathan Taylor anytime touchdown. I'm going back to the well on that one, even though he failed us last week. Didn't get a touch in the fourth quarter. Literally had like 110 rushing yards, was running all over the Packers. The Colts were down. Shane Steichen said that it was just part of the game plan because they were down. They put the other guy in. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. I'll be honest. I'm going to have to look at that a little bit more, but I'm going back to the well. I think they feed Jonathan Taylor this week and feed him in the red zone as well. And I like his over 80.5 rushing yardage prop. If it comes out somewhere around that range, I would probably play it all the way up to 84.5, 86.5, maybe before I'd have to reconsider, but definitely 80 to 84.5, I think is solid for JT. I don't have any Bears props. I don't have a real good feeling on this team on where the ball's going. Not that they're not going to score or put up points. You attack the Colts through the ground. I'm not sure that DeAndre Swift will do that or is capable of that. So I just don't have a good read on the Bears. So I'll probably stay away from most of their props this week. Kicking off the 4:00 games, we have the Panthers and the Raiders. The Raiders, 5-point home favorites right now, over under set at 40.5. And if you want to bet on the Raiders money line against the hapless Carolina Panthers, it'll cost you a minus 238. The Panthers have made a change at quarterback, announcing that Bryce Young is going to the bench for the inflappable, I thought he was retired, Andy Dalton is now going to be their starting quarterback this week. Believe it or not, I think that's an upgrade. I don't know how much of an upgrade, but I do think it's an upgrade. I like the Raiders in this game, though, still. Minshew's over 203 passing yards or 203 and a half yards passing from last week was one that I played and we cashed it out. That was in the VIP channel. And I might look at that again. I also potentially could have interest in Deontay Johnson. Even though he's looked horrible in the first 2 weeks, change of quarterback often will spark somebody in the offense. And I think Deontay Johnson at over 45 and a half receiving yards with the quarterback change to Andy Dalton could be good for this offense, could be the spark that Deontay Johnson needs. Zamir White could have a decent game as Carolina is absolutely terrible against the run. However, I'd have to see his line to know if I'm going to have any interest or if I'm going to look at any of his props there. Listen, before I go any further, you got to do me a favor. Like the video, comment on the video, subscribe to my channel. I try to put out these early look videos earlier in the week, and then I go back and I dive deep into each game and give you specific player props that I am making official VIP picks. You get them free on this channel, and then I share them with the VIP, and then I share more into the VIP. So if you want access to all of my picks, we're up 25 units in week 1, up just over 5 units so far in week 2. If you want access to being up 30 and a half units in the first 2 weeks of the NFL, click the links below, get access to all my VIP plays, say what's up in there. I'm here to answer any questions you have. I'm always accessible through that, and we have been getting paid, and this week 3 is going to be no different. The next game on the schedule is the Miami Dolphins without Tua against the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's opening up as a 5-point home favorite. The over-under is set at 41, and if you want to bet on Seattle to win, it'll cost you a minus 218. DK Metcalf, I alluded to it earlier. He was our highest plus odds anytime touchdown scorer of last week at a plus 215. He cashed us out, I believe, in the first half, probably the second quarter, I think. He might be a guy I go back to the well on. I want to see if Kenneth Walker's out again with an abdomen injury. Zach Charbonnet could be interesting as well there, although he did not look that great when he was given the opportunity last week. JSN went crazy. Really, this passing offense went nuclear last week. I expect them to have the potential to do the same this week. I just don't know if they're going to need to, because it depends on who is starting at quarterback for Miami and how they are playing to know that if they're going to have to, if Seattle's going to have to keep throwing the ball. There's not too much from Miami because of that reason. The only guy I'm potentially interested in, it's hard not to look at Tyreek Hill as a potential option because he is a guy that could take a slant for a touchdown. He can rack up all those yaks. I might be interested in him. However, Achane is probably my favorite option in this offense, but I don't know how much I'm going to bet. You're going to have to give me some decent odds on an Achane touchdown or on his props because of how bad this offense looked once Tua went out last week before I go back to the well on it. The next game is the 49ers traveling on the road to face the Rams. The Rams are banged up, to say the least. Cooper Kupp was lost last week. Moment of silence for our Cooper Kupp bets that hopefully if you played them on certain platforms, you got rebooted. But if you're on sportsbooks, they don't care about us, and we did not get rebooted, even though he was well on his way to cashing us out. I alluded to the 5.5 units we won last weekend. It would have been 10.5 probably if Cooper Kupp had just stayed healthy, as we had multiple Cooper Kupp bets, some ladders going. He looked great. He was going to cash us out. I'm confident in it. Injuries happen. It's part of the NFL. Big bummer for us. We move on, and we rise up again this week. Now, no Cooper Kupp, no Puka Nacua. The only offensive threat they've got in this offense right now is Kyren Williams, who did not look that great last week. I think the 49ers absolutely trounce the LA Rams. I like the 49ers minus 7.5 in this game. The over-under set at 43.5. The 49ers are slightly banged up too. Deebo Samuel is going to miss this game, going to miss a couple of weeks, but they've got Ayuk, they've got Kittle, they've got Jordan Mason playing great, who, by the way, Jordan Mason, interesting guy to look at his anytime touchdowns again. Kittle, maybe his receptions prop over 3.5, depending on what it comes out at. And Ayuk, if his receiving yardage prop comes out at 60.5, somewhere in that range, I like the over for Ayuk as well. Those are my plays for this game. I don't know what's going to happen with this Rams team. So before I get a better understanding of what their lineup is going to look like, I'm not going to be placing any Rams bets yet as of right now. The next game on the slate is the Detroit Lions, another team that's banged up, heading to Arizona to face the Cardinals. Detroit is a 2.5-point road favorite. Arizona, 52.5 is the over-under in this game. And Arizona, if you want to bet on them, a plus 120 for them. I actually think that the plus 120, I kind of wish it was a little bit higher, but I don't hate betting on Arizona to win this game at home in a plus 120. No Amon-Ra St. Brown for the Detroit Lions. If Kyler Murray can play decent, we saw Marvin Harrison explode last week. I think that they can steal this game. So I'm kind of interested in the Arizona Cardinals plus 120. The two guys on the Detroit side that I'm interested in, actually, I shouldn't say that. Three guys: Sam Laporta, Jamison Williams, Gibbs. Give me those three guys. I want to look at their receptions. I want to look at their yardage. I want to look at the touchdown props for a couple of them, especially Sam Laporta and Gibbs. And I'll probably sprinkle in some Montgomery, of course. But Montgomery's line last week was like a minus 180. You're not playing it at a minus 180, so you're forced to parlay it. I want to see what they give us on Gibbs' line, his touchdowns, and his receptions. And I might, as I said, sprinkle in a Sam Laporta touchdown, maybe even his first touchdown, if they give us a nice plus 600, maybe something like that. I'll have to see what their lines come out at. On the flip side of the ball, the Cardinals, really, it's Harrison and James Conner for me. I might look at a Kyler Murray prop, but I have to see what his lines come out as. I want to see what the yardage is set for Harrison, and I want to see if I can get a James Conner anytime touchdown at decent odds, specifically plus money. I would be very interested in. So I just have to see a little bit more before I bet on this. But this has one of the highest totals on the slate. If not the highest total, I think it is. So we got to have some action of this game, no doubt. Now, unless I'm reading this wrong, it does not look like there's a Sunday night game next week. Is there a large Sunday night event that I'm not aware of? The Emmys, the Grammys or something, in which case I'd say bring on the football. But either way, does not look like there's a Sunday night game. So the last game on the Sunday slate is the Ravens and Cowboys. Has the potential to be a really good one. Both teams coming off of losses. The Ravens lost a close heartbreaker to the Raiders, and the Cowboys got trounced against the surprising New Orleans Saints. I'm interested in taking Lamar's rushing prop, potentially his rushing attempts, maybe over 7.5 or 8.5, depending on what they give us. The 8.5, I have to think about it a little bit more. The 7.5 is a pretty much a smash for me. CeeDee Lamb, anytime touchdown, always in play. If you were watching it, obviously we were on him last week. He cashed us out nicely. Brandon Cooks under 46.5 receiving yards is an interesting play to me. And back over to the Ravens side, and Mark Andrews anytime touchdown could be a sneaky play this week if we can get solid odds. He hasn't come through yet this season, so we should be able to get decent odds unless the books are afraid and they don't give them to us, and then I'll have to see what the actual odd is before I know if I go for it or not. Guys, I hope you're enjoying this video. This is an early look at the slate. Player props are not even out right now, so I'm going based off of a combination of last week's odds or in props and this week's analysis, given the matchups and the chaotic weekend of football we have where we saw a ton of favorites go down. I hope you enjoy this. Hope you find value in this early look. I hope you use it to get a jump on the player props. As soon as they come out, you can be the first one getting on these props before the lines shift. And in theory, you should be able to get a lot of minus 110s or maybe even plus odds before they end the week at a minus 130, minus 140. So hopefully you find value in that. And if you find value in that, do me a favor, smash the subscribe button. That is the most important thing for me. If you can just do that for me, I greatly appreciate it. But while you're here, like the video and drop me a comment. It boosts the YouTube algorithm. It's all for the algo. You could even drop the comment algo on here. I would totally appreciate it. Guys, that's it for this video. It's an early look at the slate. I'm not going to dive into the Monday night games because I'll have another video for those games and I'll just wait for those lines to come out. I hope you found value in this video. Please do me a favor on your way out. Subscribe, like, and comment. Drop a comment that just says YouTube algo. It doesn't matter. They don't care. They won't penalize me for it. They just like to know that people are interacting with the videos. And please, I hope you guys have a great week. And remember, bet smart and win more.